Okay. Hey, everybody. Sorry about that. That was a fun little kind of fun thing we're doing. My name's Dan
We're
Selcke.
keeping you on your toes.
On your toes. This is Daniel Roman. We're the editors of WonderComing.net. And
Hello.
Thank you for coming to watch our weekly Take the Black podcast chat show. We talk about all things, mostly right now, Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, because Daniel, as LCH Jeremy points out in the chat, House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones sequel, is 4 days away. Daniel, how are you feeling about this?
I'm feeling damn excitable. 4 days away. We're pretty much there. We've been waiting years. Here we are. It's exciting times, man. How are you feeling?
I feel pretty good. And just to get the elephant in the room noticed, everyone watching, thank you for coming, by the way. Thank you, Julie, Philip, Urtak, Josephine, Nicole, Joanne. Good to see all of you. Christian.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yes, Daniel and I have seen some of the episodes of House of the Dragon. We got the screeners. No, we can't really give spoilers or details away yet till Friday.
Yep.
But we have seen it, and I will say, just keeping it as vague as possible, I watched the premiere. I thought it was very good. And that's about all I can say. Do you want to give your 2-word impressions? 2 to 5?
Yeah. So we can't really talk details until Friday is the day.
Not
so
allowed
keep an
to.
eye
HBO
on the
will
site.
Kill us. I'm sorry.
Friday. Yes, it's true. You will only have corpses on spikes for next week's show if we talk. That'd be interesting. I will say I have seen some of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen enough of the show to see the older and younger cast members, and I have thoughts. That's all I'll say. It's really good though. It's really good. I have thoughts. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. If you've been waiting for this show, it is different. It is not Game of Thrones again. It's more similar and more different than I expected.
I mean, it's not Game of Thrones, no, obviously. And I think that's a good thing at the end of the day. It did, when I started watching it, it did have... Let's try and talk a little bit very, very generally about it. And if we go too far, we'll just stop ourselves. Because again, there's an embargo. But I mean,
spikes.
Folks saw the premiere and they were giving in general, I liked that I didn't. So we can do that, right? A little bit. They saw it
I think if we keep it
the theaters,
extremely general. Yeah.
I because it does feel a lot like Game of Thrones, what would people want? But it feels different enough to justify itself, and it's very well made. I can say that.
Yeah,
it's
agree.
I was pulled along pretty effectively by the premiere episode. I got who the characters were. I got what they wanted. I kind of was put into the drama without much difficulty. I didn't have to really work to get into it. I thought it was intense in the right moments. I thought it pulled back in the right moments. I liked it a lot, honestly. I thought it was definitely a promising start to what could be a very good series. And it looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it looks fantastic. It's the one thing I think I'll say, and this is going to play off of things other people have said, so I think I could get away with it.
Blame them, HBO.
When people say this is a family saga, that's the thing. It's more focused than Game of Thrones because it's just about this one family. That comes through more than I expected. And that is not just talk. That is at the heart of this show. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think to Nicole is saying, what would you rate it on a given 10-point scale? I'll be honest, I don't know, Nicole. No comment there. But definitely in the upper half of the scale, I would say.
Good. It's a D. I'll answer Philip's question because I think that's pretty innocent. No honeycombs or jackasses so far that I've seen. But you know what? There's still time.
Yeah, that's true. There's still time. There are always, there's always that glimmer of hope. What if the final episode of House of the Dragon ends with someone, with the beginning of that joke.
The joke.
Someone tells a Lannister that joke.
Yeah, oh no, like they bring
Lannister
a jackass
ancestor.
and a honeycomb into a bar and something funny happens. And then we see like, oh, that's where it came from. This joke was always stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's coming. I'm not going to say anything more than that. It's about all you're going to get for now. Wait for our Sunday show to hear our detailed recap and thoughts.
Yes,
but
Sunday
it's
right
here,
after
it's
the
exciting
episode.
And it's happening. Sunday after the episode, we'll be doing a live thing on the Facebook and the YouTube show, talking all about the details. But for right now,
yes,
there's a lot of. I feel like people are pretty hyped for it. Like I see a lot of talk and churn online, at least. I see a lot of think pieces. I see a lot of folk. I mean, our account is getting tweeted off like out the ass. Like we're getting so much attention from all this stuff, like thousands and thousands and thousands upon stuff, which is great. I do feel like there is an appetite for it, and which is kind of funny to like look at, because I don't feel like they're really kind of getting through on like the Lord of the Rings that much. I feel like I see a lot of people like putting out articles about it, and I can see that Amazon's out there trying to get the word about it. I don't see it getting talked about as much. So I think that's good. I think there is some real momentum heading into the premiere, and the premiere is pretty strong. Yeah. So I think it's a good chance to keep that up.
Yeah, I think it is fascinating because like we have two series basically premiering around the same time that are both a prequel about a previously unseen golden age of these very famous fantasy works. They're basically the same show, but they're not. I can't wait till I can talk a little more details about general thoughts. But I think there's an appetite for it. I think the appetite is going to be well warranted, and it's an HBO show. That's what you can say for it. It's not dumbing itself down for viewers.
I'll say this too. It's not a. It does treat the audience like adults. I feel like I watched the first episode.
Absolutely.
And I did not feel pandered to. I did not feel like they were kind of cutting stuff out to make it easier to digest. I felt like it was a robust show. Sorry?
I said I think more than Thrones, even in terms of the not dumbing stuff down, treating the audience like adults. I think it even does that a little bit better than Thrones.
Okay. We can't go too far because I'm always just nervous that then we're going to go too far. We do have some images, and these are just from the behind the scenes features. Like we're not leaking this stuff. Richard, could you show us the one that I believe is the next one is actually pretty good. The one of the long-haired Matt Smith and the long-haired Dark Lady. All right, this is pretty good. So this is Daemon Targaryen, Matt Smith, and Massaria, played by Sonoya Mizuno, who I remember from oh hell, I forget the movie where Oscar Isaac is the tech billionaire, and then Domhnall Gleeson is the young programmer who goes and he makes a robot, and it's Alicia Vanderkar, and then she's one of the other robots. Hell, okay.
I don't know, but I want to see it.
It's good. It was really good.
So
that's the one. Thank you, Richard.
Gotcha. So
all the actor names and none of the movie name. It's amazing. Okay, go
on. So we haven't seen too much of Massaria. So it's nice to get a couple more images of her leading into the show. She's kind of like, and again, this is not speaking from the show, this is speaking from the book. She's kind of like the story's version of Varys. She begins kind of as a paramour of Daemon Targaryen, and kind of has to forge her own way because she's one of the few main characters who's not a Targaryen, and therefore doesn't have all the privileges that come along with that.
Yeah, she doesn't look very happy here. On the, well, yeah, I suppose not. Well, she has Matt Smith all up on her. Who knows? She has thoughts. It is interesting that this show is going to be so focused. Like later in the book, does it ever sprawl out, do you think? Because the thing that distinguished Game of Thrones and that the Lord of the Rings show is totally going for, with like we have like our dwarf areas and our hobbit areas and our elf areas, is that we switched from the Starks to the Lannisters to Daenerys Targaryen's adventures, eventually to the Greyjoys and to the Martells for that one bad trip. And it was always something new, to Jaime's adventures in the Riverlands and Brienne and Podrick wandering around. And they're just, it's so much more focused. Now, there is a bit of sprawl later, like, we'll get into Nettles later, I'm sure, because I will say this too, also being very vague. This show, it seems, and you know what? I just took off my ass. You could see this even without watching the series. They're pretty committed to doing a faithful adaptation, I think. Like a lot of details are there, like a lot. This isn't something where they're just kind of like more like the Wheel of Time, where they're the solid base is there, but they're just kind of building up how they want. Like this is pretty on the letter with some expansions and changes. So later on, we'll have like the adventures of Nettles, and we'll have, the guy from Winterfell, who, like a Rickard Stuck, who comes down and does the Hour of the Wolf. We'll have some of the people from the Riverlands who get into it. But so there'll be some, but not a ton. Oh, there's two bastard-born dragon seeds who like declare themselves to be the new kings and just go off on their own. That'll be fun. So we'll have some of it, but mostly it is going to be much more tightly focused on these blonde-headed people.
Yeah, I think that, so the sprawl question, man, that's again, next week we can talk more about that, because I had some thoughts about that specifically. I do think, so we know, this is from George R.R. Martin. This was confirmed today on the official Game of Thrones podcast, which aired an interview with him.
CYA.
Basically, he confirmed the time span for this season is around 28 years. So it's going from the Great Council to the start of the war, which we assumed, but now we know for sure. I think if we're going to see like bigger sprawl on this show, like geographic sprawl, it's really going to start to hit in a season 2 if we get it. Like, I think we'll see more places as the show goes on, because there are other locations that are in the early pre Dance of the Dragons era, like there's the whole Stepstones War, which we have seen in trailers, stuff like that. But I think once the war hits, then it by necessity, the story is less about what's going on in King's Landing and who's friends with who and stuff like that. Then it becomes about battles in different places and who controls what territories. And at that point, I think the sprawl might be more relevant to the story, because the lay of the land is more relevant to the story.
Of course. Speaking of temporal sprawl, I think that's our first image of one of Rhaenyra's sons, one of her strong boys. Which again, don't say if you've seen him or not, but just again, cool to see that they're doing it pretty by the book. Because I don't know, if I were adapting something, there are so many kind of sons and children of sons and nephews and nieces that I might cut some. But we will see Rhaenyra's kids, which of course is an important scene. God, I want to ask you questions of what's in episode 6, but I can't, and I won't, and I shan't. We don't even have to watch that far.
We don't.
By the way, I believe it was Brian asked, what time does it premiere? Brian, it premieres on Sunday, not Saturday, at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So it'll be 9 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. It'll be 6 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. And if you're like one of those wacky folk who lives in the mountains, it'll be 7, I suppose.
Yeah.
And if you live elsewhere in the world,
good knowledge of the time zones.
It has been a trial, let me tell you. That knowledge was hard earned. As Julie asked, do you think it would draw people who haven't seen Game of Thrones into watching Game of Thrones? Ooh, that's a good question. I mean,
that is a great question.
Based on what I've seen, I think it's strong enough to have. Anyone could watch this and enjoy it. There's some world, but of course there is. Will it draw them to Game of Thrones? I mean, my guess is if the show is a success, it'll get to the end of the first season and then go to Game of Thrones to have something else to watch in the franchise. But honestly, Game of Thrones was so
Yeah.
popular. Like who hasn't seen Game of Thrones still needs to see it.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine the
And
audience
who wants
who would
to.
be like, ooh, this new show, House of the Dragon. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I'll watch this and then maybe give Game of Thrones a chance.
Yeah,
Like, it's funny to try to
possible.
imagine. Yeah. I mean, there will come a day when
It will come a day.
we're old people and House of the Dragon will be more relevant to the youngins. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But I do think House of the Dragon could appeal to people who didn't necessarily enjoy Game of Thrones. It is a different enough show.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think there's some potential there for sure. Yeah. What can we say without saying anything? That's the game.
On Friday, we're gonna say so much, you guys. Just bear with us.
Yes.
Okay.
Sunday we can give the broader thoughts too.
And I'm sure Friday you'll have some impressions that are not spoilery, but more spoilery than this, but more in depth. No
spoilers. Yeah,
none.
There will be no spoilers, but yeah,
you can talk about your
thoughts
feelings.
up on the site.
You can talk about how it made you feel and the structural pros and cons. All that.
Exactly.
So go ahead. Any other thoughts before we incriminate ourselves and just move on to something else?
I don't think so. I was just gonna suggest we move on to, rounding up the House of the Dragon news, because this is the week before release. I still can't believe it's 4 days away. So obviously people are making press rounds, people are saying things, and we've got a few things to round up on that front.
We could.
Dan, do you know where the premieres happened? Because there were a few European premieres.
There was one in LA, there was one in London, there was one in Sydney, where the CEO of the Australian company, I think it's Foxtel, got up there and called and made a joke about I never got into Game of Thrones. I was like, what's that short dumpy woman walk through the fire about? Just called Emilia Clarke a dumpy woman in front of a crowd here to see a Game of Thrones
Mistakes
show.
Were made.
And then was surprised people were offended. That was weird. Why do you ask though? Yeah. They were all over the world.
Yeah, because the House of the Dragon, the premiere has been premiering around the world. Lots of people calling it absolutely spectacular. The first reviews for this thing have been glowing, which is really exciting. It's exciting to hear how well received it's being, because I think we've all been nervous at one point or another that it could suck.
Not just because we like the show, because our livelihoods are partly tied into it. I don't want it to suck. I want this stuff to keep going for a while. And the showrunner called it Session with Dragons. It's more or less accurate. I mean, nothing.
I think that's very accurate.
Too big. I also like what George R. R. Martin said about it, that we've covered this before, that it's a House of the Dragon as compared to Game of Thrones is more of a Shakespearean tragedy full of gray characters who you can love or you can hate, as compared to Game of Thrones that had this evil incarnate in the White Walkers, more or less, who he called the White Shadows, by the way, because apparently he likes to rewrite things in his head, which again is true. We've discussed that. Julie, I like Julie's comments about how she does know people who haven't seen Game of Thrones. I mean, I have too, but I'm not sure if someone hadn't seen. I think they're close enough in tone that if you're not interested in Game of Thrones, you're probably not going to be interested in this either. But a lot of folk are interested in Game of Thrones, so we'll see.
Yeah, I would say if you enjoyed shows like The Crown or Succession, like the family saga type shows, I think that's a thing this has that Game of Thrones, it wasn't quite as centered on Game of Thrones. So maybe it could reach those people a little bit.
Royal fetishists.
The Shakespearean tragedy. That feels pretty on point to me.
Work. And as Thomas says, can't wait to see our mushroom. Thomas, I have some bad news for you.
Thomas.
Unless they have a surprise in store for us, I don't think Mushroom is in the show. Mushroom is the dwarf court jester for King Viserys and later Rhaenyra. And considering that he's a dwarf whose job it is to make a fool of himself and dance on a pointy shoes, I think they cut him, figuring we don't follow Tyrion Lannister with that, with that. I could be wrong. Maybe he turns up, but I really don't think he turns up. And
you wrote a great piece about this. I wrote on the site over the past weekend. If you have a mushroom-shaped hole in your heart, Dan has a great piece about this up on the site. The case for and against mushroom, because it is a huge question. We don't know whether Mushroom's going to show up. I think Ryan Condal got asked. Mm-hmm. He got asked point blank, is Mushroom in the show, and he said no comment. So I think there's hope for Mushroom, but I also wouldn't don't expect Mushroom to be a main character, guys. Like, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, okay, let me just put this out to everybody watching. Daniel's seen a bunch of it. He might know. He might be lying to us right now. I don't know. I've seen the premiere, and people have already confirmed it's not the premiere at least. And I don't think, but Daniel,
I don't have that good of a poker face.
Look at me in the eye, and just okay, is he lying? It's hard to tell.
We'll never know.
He's a shifty one.
We'll find out.
That's true. Anyway, let's move on before we say anything that we've already haven't said that's going to get us into trouble. Beyond House of the Dragon, I always hesitate to bring this up because it feels like just picking at a wound sometime. But because George R. Martin has been so vocal lately about House of the Dragon, he's also said it sounds like promising things about the Winds of Winter. It just does. Like, he's talking recently. He wrote on his blog that, he's working on Winds of Winter, this 6th long-awaited book in his Song of Ice and Fire series. And he wrote, I hope to wrap up the storyline for one of the viewpoint characters of Winds of Winter this week, maybe even 2. So I'm just saying, if he's close enough, I know he's terrible at deadlines and predicting his own writing speed, but
by his own admission.
But surely he can predict within a week. How could a week, I'll be done in a week, turn into 3 years? Maybe it could. It's possible.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's turning a corner, and I know I should get my hopes up, but I am. Because, there are only... He was talking recently about how he was writing Tyrion chapters. Now he's talking about I'm going to finish a viewpoint character. Tyrion's a huge character. He has a lot of chapters in it. If he finishes a character that big, that probably means that's a really big chunk of the book. And I shouldn't hope, but it's nice to hear. There's also saying I'm not predicting when I'm going to be done anymore. God, sometimes I think
he's been saying that for a long time.
About what his publishers are like, and just how few hairs they must have left, and how how thoroughly the impression of the desk they bang their heads into has made itself on their forehead, and I just feel bad for them. But cautiously
don't feel too bad. Don't feel too bad because this is not as much as George R. R. Martin. I know we're all frustrated because we all want the Winds of Winter. It's not a Patrick Rothfuss situation though. He still puts out plenty of other stuff. Yes, it's not like he hasn't released anything in 12 years. He's released tons of stuff. His publisher's just fine. And they're riding the Fire and Blood train. Because they just put out a new binding of that is actually surprisingly nice looking for a TV tie-in, because it's just the Targaryen sigil with a nice black background.
It's classy.
Me too.
It's not just
this one looks
Matt
good.
Smith's big old face on a book cover,
which is exactly what I expected. Yeah. So the thing to me with this whole George R. R. Martin stuff, it feels clinically insane to be maybe there's hope. But we've been following him and his blogs and his writing about this for literal years. He has been more open about his progress with the book in the past couple of months than literally he has been for years.
And like specific things too. Like I'm finishing a viewpoint characters chapter, which is specificity is how you know it's working.
Yeah.
I like that point you made about him versus Rothfuss, where it's like Patrick Rothfuss, writer of the Name of the Wind series, wrote his last book as long ago as Dance of Dragons, and he just, as far as I can tell, just spends time on Twitter dunking on the Twitter villain of the day or whatever. And you're right, George R. R. Martin has put out a lot of work. It just hasn't been the work he edits stuff. So it's not like it's not working.
Yeah. No, totally not. He is, he's got his hand in 100 different projects at any given time. He had like a new Wild Cards book that he edited that came out recently. And I personally am not into Wild Cards, but there are people out there who are, presumably, because they're still making them.
They're making a Hulu show.
Martha, yeah, I hope that goes through. Martha asked about House of the Dragon impressions on Friday. We won't have an extra podcast on Friday, but we will have some first impression articles up on the site. So winteriscoming.net. Yeah, but then our Sunday night podcast will be talking more.
Oh yeah. By the way, Bio Gwen on YouTube talks about a concern that I had about if they remove Mushroom from House of the Dragon, it might be too dark. Bio Gwen, literally, that I was thinking that, and at least, and again, I've only seen the premiere, but based on the premiere, they do keep in. It's not just, yes, the show is serious and it's a Shakespearean tragedy, but at least in the premiere, they remembered that people have other settings than just incredibly set. Like it's not just this. It seems like a real life thing when people have ups and downs. It wasn't joyless. I was afraid it'd be joyless. And I'm not sure how I would put Mushroom in, but we'll talk more about that again, more in detail Sunday. I didn't miss Mushroom in the premiere at least, but I haven't seen beyond that. So we'll see what happens there.
I have not missed Mushroom. I'll say that much.
Okay.
And
this is an easy. He finished the second of two Melisandre.
Oh, harsh, Philip.
It'd be funny.
I did have the thought. I wonder if one of those second, plot lines he's finishing up was one that has like 3 chapters in the book.
Oh God.
Which is okay. I'll still.
He was just writing about
Tyrion. Was a big
just doing it.
Yes.
So that's why I'm.
He can take a break with I guess Davos with someone who had like 3 chapters in a Dance with Dragons. I hope Davos has more chapters.
And it should have only had 1
in the Winds of Winter.
I'm still buttered over that. Yes, those first 2 useless. Davos chapters, Dance with Dragons.
Harsh.
Sometimes I think about what if I were Martin's editor and I wasn't like some sycophantic whatever he has going for him now, and showed him like, cut this stuff down. You don't need half of this, which is what I would do.
No one cares about Quentin Martell.
Nobody cares about Quentin Martell. I mean, some folk do, actually. I've met people who do. I don't. If I were Dance with Dragons, I would have lobbied so hard to cut pretty much everything Quentin Martell until he steps into the pit and gets burned to death. That's pretty good. The rest of it, tired. You've done the same stuff better in other books. Why? That's my opinion, and that's what I think.
That's fair. But let's talk about something that's not an opinion, Dan.
Yeah, let's.
Something that is a cold hard fact that you unearthed. This is some news that you broke that is kind of baffling, mind-boggling to me. You kind of stumbled upon the fact that Netflix has filmed more Sandman than they've released. Do you want to tell us about that? Because that's pretty crazy to me,
Daniel. So The Sandman is a show on Netflix that came out so just like last week. No, it was like 2 weeks ago. Adaptation of Neil Gaiman's beloved comic book. And long story short, I liked it a lot. I'm a fan of the comic. I loved the show. Overall, I thought it was very, very strong. And now I'm going to tell you a brief story. So this past Saturday, it's Saturday morning, and I'm eating whatever it is I eat on Saturdays, probably a banana. and I turned on the YouTube show I Like to Watch, which is a YouTube program where two drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race named Trixie Mattel and Katya Zamolodchikova watch and crack wise about whatever Netflix shows are on. And I don't always watch it, but I think it's cute. It's funny. I like, I'm just sitting there with like my oatmeal going like, and I saw they're watching the Sandman. And I'm like, oh, come on, yeah, because I've seen the Sandman. Like sometimes they'll watch a show that I will never watch, and I have no intention of watching. But the Sandman, I'm like, oh, this is good because I've watched Sandman. I want to see what to say about it. So I'm watching it. It's a reaction show. So I'm watching them watch the Sandman and talk about it in funny ways. And they get to start commenting on picked images, clips from the Sandman that I have not seen, that aren't in the 10 episodes released. They're talking about things that just weren't in the 10 episodes that were dropped. I'll give some pictures. There's one that was definitely like they got Dream and Calliope there. That's some thing from the second comic. That's his old ex-girlfriend, the Greek muse Calliope. That's a story. And I'm like, they didn't adapt that one. How are they reacting to this? And then they had
so I want to ask you about this because I haven't read that far in the comics. So are these the things that you've seen, which we have that and then another image? Those are from stories that for sure are coming after what we've seen so far.
Because again, they weren't just like, they were clips they were watching with like sound and acting and movement. And I recognized them like, oh, that's the Calliope story. The other one is an animated adaptation of A Dream of a Thousand Cats, which is about a world where cats are huge. It's like the cat's dream where cats are huge and they just hunt humans for fun like mice. It's a great story. And that's one I didn't think they would do because it's like, it'd be impossible because it's just too elaborate. And the answer is they animated it. I love that, by the way, that they're adapting like everything, because that's when they're awesome. Like, okay, they're probably not going to do the cat one because it's just too wild and out there. But no one would blame the cat one. But they didn't show us. They showed Trixie and Katya, the drag queens, but they didn't show us. They kept it. And then Netflix took this video down from YouTube, which meant they showed those drag queens by accident. They weren't supposed to reveal they had made this. So I felt like I was going crazy. Yeah, it was really interesting. And it wasn't really picked up either. I haven't seen a ton of people talking about it, but they straight up made more episodes of Sandman, and there's video proof, and in my memory, screenshot proof right there. And they're just, I don't know what they're doing. They're keeping it back to release later, or maybe it's not completely done. But then how did it get into the hands of the I Like to Watch people, which Netflix runs that channel, by the way, obviously.
I figured.
Weird, confusing, but I want it now. Release that episode now, or however many else you made. I'm not sure what you did.
So this is fascinating to me because to my eye, there are only so many explanations for this, because we see Tom Sturridge there. Like, this is clearly like
he's in makeup,
it might not be 100%. Yeah, it's things they filmed. So whether they're finished episodes or not, we know that they at the very least attempted or tried or have started working on episodes beyond what's in the season. So to me, it's either they have extra episodes they haven't released yet, maybe we'll get to see them soon, or maybe they did more episodes originally and then realized they weren't going to be, those ones weren't working for this season, so they held that material back. I think that's a possibility.
Save it for the
without
Sandman
having seen
Blu-ray.
The whole season. Yeah, well, I think if they, I think there's a good chance, like, it's hard for me to imagine them skipping that part of the story. Again, without knowing the story, like if based on how faithfully they're doing the comics, I couldn't see them being like, these are extra things, they didn't work, so we're going to forget about it. It's just a question of when we're going to see that resurface.
Yes, I would love a Sandman holiday special, says Richard. That would be great. I mean, and the thing is
Agree.
with the Sandman, the comic, there are tons of stories. Some of them are purely standalone. Like the cat one, that is related
Yeah.
to nothing. It's cool. I like it a
Sure.
lot, but you could not do that and you'd be fine. The Calliope one is part of the story. Like that's more part
That's a big
of
one.
the overall narrative. It's not huge, but it's like you would need to do it. And I can't imagine these folk would skip it. So again, that almost makes it more confusing. Like, you're gonna lose the one and do the other. Are they part of the same episode? Because they don't really go together. Are they just cutting room floor stuff like I said for season 2? Is it gonna be a holiday special? That's mostly a British thing. But I mean, there's so much Sandman crap to adapt. If you want to do it all, sure, do like an interstitial holiday thing.
The Sandman is a little more, I mean, it is a more British show than a lot of stuff Netflix puts out at the same time. Not being like, it's British enough for a holiday special, but since we know they have the footage, it's rife for speculation.
And again, I felt like I found it because it was not pointed towards this. I just watched the drag queen YouTube show and it was just there. And then the video was gone, which was just very, what were the odds,
1 in a million. What if they took it down because they saw you reporting on it? They were like, Dan Selcke's on to us.
I hadn't written anything, although it was out there. Ashley
off.
Hurst, who is our great Sandman correspondent over in England, where the English live, like the Sandman people, he was tweeting about it on Twitter. Like, have you seen this?
Okay.
And I like slacked him, like, what is going on? And we were talking back and forth. But perhaps I saw that. Ashley Hurst, follow him. He runs the Sandman fan page on Twitter. Very, very good.
Yep. Big Sandman community over there.
There
was one question. There's one thing. This is not a Sandman thing, but there was one question I wanted to get back to, and I don't know if I can find it in Restream. I think Urtak over someone on YouTube asked, what impressed you the most about
I remember
the House
that.
of the Dragon premiere? The acting, the music, the effects, the landscapes. That is a easy enough question to give a one-word answer to, and I'm curious what yours is. I'll say mine was the acting.
I want to cheat and say like the whole of it, but if I have to choose one thing, I guess it was the restraint. That's kind of cheating, but I don't think it is. That's one word.
That's nice.
I think it was the restraint. I thought that it really, I was impressed that it kind of took its time and had me feeling attached to pretty much all of the characters it focused on and kind of drew good pictures of them in a not long amount of time. Yeah, I was impressed with how confidently it built itself. And that wouldn't work if the acting wasn't good and the effects. Sure. But I think it has like a good steady hand at the rudder based on what I saw there.
Yeah, I'd agree. Cool. That was a good question. I just wanted to hit that before we.
Sorry, that we kind of skipped it over there. Oh, they're gonna get you now, Dan. You better run. Oh, Netflix. I'm afraid of HBO and I'm terrified of Disney. Netflix, they couldn't get me if they tried. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to stumble over themselves. They're going to like get the message to get me like pass through 18 different channels and get it confused. Do your worst, Netflix.
People would get laid off. Though, please the people who came to get you would get laid off before they could get to you.
Yeah.
It'd be a mess.
But HBO and Disney, please
they'd
don't.
be just waiting outside your car.
I love you. Disney has snipers trained on everybody at all times. Like right now, who even wants to play Chopik has to do is just say one word into a walkie-talkie, and my brain explodes. The chip that was put in there when I was like baby. So yeah, don't mess with Disney. Mess with Netflix all you want. They can't do anything right. Okay,
it's true.
And Netflix did give me the same amount of advance. Okay, speaking of things that HBO made, what else might we be watching these days, Daniel? And what else are you guys watching out there? Any other shows or movies or even books, if you're that kind of person, that are intriguing you these days?
Well, I think the big one that we have to hit on here is Westworld. So the Westworld season 4 finale happened
It did.
last Sunday. And yeah, it happened. That's what I'll, I'll say for it. Man, I there are things I liked about it and a lot of things I didn't. I feel like Westworld had such a good season and then it just kind of tripped over itself in the last 2 episodes. How did you feel, Dan? And how did you feel out there if you watched it?
I mean, I don't think I was quite as aghast and offended as you seem to be, but you're right. The final 2 episodes of Westworld season 4 did just feel less kind of propulsive and immediate than the other ones. It felt like there was less of a connection. I didn't care as much about what was happening to these people on the screen. And I'm not entirely sure why, but it seemed like what I liked about the season, the first big chunk of it, was that I felt connected to folk like Maeve again. Like I was intrigued by what's happening to Christina. Like I was charmed by Bernard and Ashley Stubbs' little dynamic going on. Caleb was going through it and I felt bad for him. Like Caleb and Maeve together, like I wanted them to succeed. And these last 2 episodes, we kind of like pulls out and it kind of becomes more about ideas and like they have something to say. It got like into that thing from season 2 where they were convinced that the minutia of the lore was really interesting, and I don't know why, because it's not.
I mean,
and they're just kind of saying things like, "Well, everyone will die on Earth." It's like, they will, like, since when? Like they,
I
just don't think it's a very tightly
tell us how you really
imagined
feel,
show. And I didn't really enjoy the final 2 that much. Oh, and Mia, hey Mia, it happened.
Hey Mia,
what did you think of it?
Check out her video review, Mia Johnson.
Yes, absolutely.
She's got a great video review of this season up. So I like the minutia. I really liked the twist with Christina. I thought was pretty crazy, and I loved how it gives the season a great rewatch value. Joanne saying, I found the ending very confusing. You are not alone. I've seen that from so many people. The Christina twist I loved. I just felt like the season, it did so much good work with making us care about these characters again, like especially Maeve and Caleb for me. It really, really did a wonderful job with them. Like those episode 4, I think is one of my favorite episodes that the show has had in quite a while. But it almost felt like the last 2 episodes had a different set of writers. And I don't know this, I haven't looked at who the writers were for these episodes, but the focus just seemed to so completely shift away from these really intricate character dynamics that had been building to the world is now ending. And I just wish we had more time to really feel the scope of that, because it's kind of like that old adage of like show don't tell. They told us the world was ending. They didn't really show us the world was ending
at all.
They were like, basically like this city collapsed, and therefore the rest
are
of the
there
world
other
did.
cities? Is the entire world full of the mind control flies? Like maybe?
Yes.
I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, and it is. Charlotte said she took over the world. She alludes to there being multiple cities. So it is implied that the hosts rule the world.
So that those 8 people are the only outliers in the entire world, all the billions of people.
Yeah, I had a huge issue with the scope this season of wishing that they had just taken, like they should have gotten to the point of the host taking over the world at the end of season 3, and then had all of season 4 be about what a host controlled world looked like, because they gave us 4 episodes to really see that. Like by the time the twist happened and you realized what was going on, like that's a very short amount of time to be like, it's a new world order and we're going to bring it all down in like 2 episodes. So it felt kind of like they were rushing from A to B a little bit. I do feel bad because
that Julie enjoyed it. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, Julie. I think that's really cool and happy for you. Wish I was on your on your joy train. Okay, sorry, go on.
I think it's worth the watch. Like, I still enjoyed Westworld. I just think it's interesting to me. I feel like Westworld doesn't realize its own strengths sometimes. So like there are times when they lean into the big twists, and that's great. And it's like with these episodes with Maeve, it's like they had this amazing setup of, we're bringing Maeve back. She's a weapon. She can be used to stop Charlotte. And like they basically just brought her back to fist fight Charlotte Hale. Like, how is that? You know, yeah, it's like how were her powers not a factor? Like, have her powers factor into rewiring the tower or something, like some way to use the fact that Maeve is special for more than just
don't bring her back. Like, have her death be a powerful moment, and that,
which it was. I thought Maeve's mid-season death, I thought, was really good. It felt like she died, even knowing she's a host and she could come back. It still felt like she died then. Just because the emotional stakes were really high. So it's weird because it's like looking back at earlier episodes, it's not like, oh, previous seasons this and the finale like lost it. It's like we're looking back like 3 episodes and being like, what went wrong from 2 episodes ago? So yeah, I'm baffled. I hope they get a 5th season just to see. We've made it this far, damn it. I want to see what the ending they have in mind is.
I don't know.
I don't know. Will you watch season 5?
If it happens, probably. But at this point, I'm not sure these folk really deserve a place at the big Hollywood table. I mean, how can you make season after season? There's so much money on that screen, and they're just throwing it away over and to point of no return. Was season 3 when they fought the hard to pronounce supercomputer. After that, that was like a mistake. It was hard to bounce back from. And maybe, I have no idea. Hey, Albert R. We did discuss Winds of Winter a bit. I mean, the long story short of that, Albert R., is that Martin said he might be close to finishing, but we don't know. So basically the same as always. How about this, Daniel? Beyond Westworld, another big show coming out tomorrow is She-Hulk, the new Marvel program. Are you interested at all? Does it like tickle you in the littlest bit?
So I am yes and no. Like I have a little bit of Marvel burnout right now. I can't lie. I think She-Hulk looks great. And I personally, I like the Hulk. I love the humor they're going for. It's just hard because we're in the middle of this stretch where like Westworld just ended and House of the Dragon is this weekend. So like She-Hulk just feels so low on my radar right now.
Sure.
But I'm sure I'll watch it and enjoy it. It'll be a nice break from hard analyzing Westworld and House of the Dragon. How about, are you going to watch it? How do you feel?
I will say I like that they're like apparently like half-hour episodes, so I'll just watch it like during lunch when I have time, if I'm folding laundry or something. I probably will check it out.
I think She-Hulk is going to be a lot of fun. I've heard good things from the few people I know who have seen it. So I think it's going to be a good time. And the Marvel burnout, it is definitely real. I love Marvel, but it's just hard when there's no downtime, basically. Like last year, I think there was 1 month we didn't get Marvel content all year. So at that point, it's like, it's not really giving us time to miss it.
I mean, that's got to be the same this year, hasn't it? I mean, we have She-Hulk this month.
It's been a little less.
We had Ms. Marvel, at least part of Ms. Marvel last month, like the last few episodes. I don't think it's been much. I guess there was one
that came out in May.
March. March. Long ago.
March to May.
And Doctor Strange. There was one great article. I just like the headline of this Daily Beast thing where it says, She-Hulk is Marvel trash at its most offensive. Like that is powerful.
Ouch.
I have no idea if it's good or bad. I'll watch it. It looks fun, but I do appreciate the boldness.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Marvel's best I enjoy Marvel most when it remembers to be fun. Even though I love
Sure.
Civil War and Infinity War, I think a lot of it's more when it remembers to be lightly comedic, we'll say. So like we've talked a lot about how I didn't like Thor Love and Thunder, but like
Oh yeah,
Ant-Man, for example, like the movies and shows where it remembers to be fun, I think those work well. So I think She-Hulk in that respect, I'm confident in. I'm less worried about She-Hulk than I was about some of the other series. Like I think it'll be
Nice.
good. I love that they're
Good.
bringing back Tim Roth as the Abomination too, because I love the old Incredible Hulk movie, and I just think it's awesome that they're bringing back plot points from that like a decade later.
Yeah, I don't recall that all. Some good comments before we get into our before we move on. I think Julie hated Charlotte and Westworld the whole way through. I did too, which I liked, by the way. I enjoyed hating Charlotte. I thought she was a good villain this time.
Was a great
And Daniel,
villain.
are there any anything else you want to talk before we go into the lightning round?
Yeah, I do. So I've been between watching shows, I've been reading a lot. Those things with paper. I think they're called books. There are a few really good fantasy books. Yeah, a few really good fantasy books that are out this week. We'll be covering them on the site. One is the Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, which is a sapphic epic fantasy in a South Asian inspired like fantasy world. Very, very cool. It's the sequel to her book, The Jasmine Throne. The other one is the first binding. It is a chunky boy by R.R. Birdie. We talked about Rothfuss a little earlier. If you have been missing the Name of the Wind for the past 12 years, this is the closest thing to the Name of the Wind out of hundreds of fantasy books that I've read since it came out. Same sort of lyricism to the writing, same sort of stories within stories.
The cover kind of looks the same.
Yeah. It's the most fascinating guy in the world telling his life story type thing. It's again, this is another South Asian inspired world. It's like inspired by the Silk Road. Cool. Really, really great book. So yeah, this one came out yesterday too. So lots of good books, good shows, good fantastical media for the whole family.
All of it covered here at Take the Black and winterscoming.net. We're talking about a lot of stuff real soon. Before we close out, Daniel, shall we do one of the Winter's Coming's famous WiC News Lightning Rounds, where we just shotgun the news in 20-second bursts?
I think that would be wise to do a world famous lightning round.
I agree. Wise is the right word. All right. Richard, please put 20 seconds on the clock. And this first news bit, Daniel, is for you. Jurassic World Dominion, the Blu-ray, will have 14 minutes of extra footage. Are you excited about that, you Jurassic World dinosaur loving person?
I am. So Dominion was a decent movie. Wasn't incredible, wasn't bad. But they cut out some really crucial stuff. There's a prologue that is on YouTube that was supposed to be in the movie that they cut for length, and that will be on the Blu-ray. So this is an instance where if you like Jurassic World, this is going to be the actual way you should watch it. Cool. It made me so mad that they cut it out of the movie.
A true parkhead like you, and I take that Ryan down.
He wrecks a drive-in. I went to the drive-in to see it, and they cut it.
Wait, really? You like went to the drive-in for the drive-in scene?
Well, no, I went to the drive-in because the drive-in was convenient. But as I was sitting in my car, I thought people are going to love this. We're at the drive-in and it's going to wreck the drive-in. And then it didn't happen.
I don't blame you.
But sorry, I digress.
Okay.
I digress from the lightning round. Let us move on to very important news.
Yeah.
Ezra Miller apologizes for their behavior and is seeking treatment for complex mental health issues. How do you feel? Forgiving?
Sure. I mean, in all seriousness, if someone is getting help for their whatever they're going through, that's a good thing. It's just been a wild story. I mean, Ezra Miller, prominent actor who's playing the Flash, who was in the Speed franchise, has gone on what's very close to being like an international crime spree the past couple of months, and now they're getting help, so that's a good thing. I wonder if it's over, but we'll see
Yeah.
in the near future. All right, Daniel. Here's a fun one. Peter Jackson considered getting hypnotherapy on himself to forget that he directed the Lord of the Rings trilogy because he wanted to see it with fresh eyes like a fan.
Yeah. I mean, that's hilarious on the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the impulse though, because I think when you're that deep in a creative project, you're not going to get to see it the same way. Like, you know, the curtains peeled back. You made the thing. And it became one of the most important pieces of cinema history we've had in the past however many years. I feel for Peter Jackson. I hope he gets the hypnotherapy one day.
I don't think it would work like that, but I hope he's happy. But we don't have time to talk about it.
Yeah.
We got to go on.
True. It's true. All right. Man, this next one. Okay. So the show Pennyworth, which is a show that does exist, but HBO was worried that it's wasn't getting seen very much and people didn't know what it was. So it is now being titled Pennyworth, The Origin of Batman's Butler. Will you be watching Pennyworth, The Origin of Batman's Butler, Dan?
I didn't watch the first 2 seasons of Pennyworth on Epix. I probably won't watch the 3rd season of the newly titled Pennyworth, The Origin of Batman's Butler. I mean, if you have so little faith in the show that you have to graft that incredibly unwieldy subtitle onto it, why buy it at all? Like, why host it on your streaming service if you don't believe in it whatsoever? But it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Why get that? And cancel Batgirl.
Yes. And cancel Batwoman, don't forget. But you preserve Pennyworth, The Origin of Batman's Butler. All right. Speaking of Batman, you noted that Warner Brothers, which is going through quite a bit of tumult right these days, has said that Batman 2, starring Robert Pattinson, hasn't been greenlit, is still years away.
Yeah, a little disconcerting just because of all of the tumult, like you said, with HBO and Warner Media and Discovery. But this is probably just because it's in early stages, I think. Of course, it's years away, and it was a huge hit. It would be baffling if they didn't make the Batman 2. It was one of their most successful movies of the year. So we'll see.
You would think. Joanne watched Pennyworth, apparently. I'm glad.
Oh, nice.
It was pretty good. Good. I'm sure it's probably a good show. I just it's going through a metamorphosis. Anyway, continue.
It is now about the origin of Batman's butler instead of a spy.
Before, yeah.
All right. So Stranger Things, the massive Netflix 80s paranormal science fiction hits, which is known for a huge cast of characters similar to Game of Thrones, will try not to introduce new characters in season 5. So
I mean, that makes sense because season 5 is the final season, so you're not going to have any new players. Yeah. I always admired about the show that I have critiques of it, but they always did a great job of introducing new characters and actually getting us to like think of them as part of the team. They're really, really good at that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense for the final season, pare it back a bit, just focus on what works.
Yeah.
Nice.
All
right. Daniel, here's a cool one. So The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is also a giant show that's coming out. Here's a picture of the island nation of Numenor. Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, we're getting some first looks at Numenor in detail. You can see they're technologically advanced. They have pulleys. There's a horse being lifted across onto a ship there in the background. So there's a whole bunch of technology Numenor has. They did a bunch of research. This was a practical set. They built Numenor for this, from what I've read.
Cool. They built the horse pulley?
It'd be pretty cool. I mean, that may be a CGI horse. I'm not gonna put my job on the line vouching for this pulley horse, but
if you were wrong,
lots of things about it are practical. All right. So speaking of mergers and mix-ups and all that kind of stuff, Nexstar will become the new owner of the CW. Mark Pedowitz is going to remain the CEO of the CW.
Yeah, another big stir up. The CW finally sold itself. Nexstar, which is a huge owner of local TV stations, has like a 75% controlling stake in it, and then Warner Bros. And CBS have the kind of split the rest of it. The CW will continue. Apparently, it's gonna be more like adult focus now, like less of the teen shows it's known for. Good for the CW, maybe. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I'm
good luck.
curious. Yeah, good luck. Best of luck.
Yeah.
Hey, Daniel. Here's a picture of Tim Burton's Wednesday series on Netflix, starring Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia and Luis Guzman as Gomez from the Addams Family.
I mean, it looks fun. Tim Burton doing the Addams Family feels like, a match made in heaven.
Like he finally just said yes after years of them asking.
Yeah, or like his whole life has led to this moment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll watch it. It looks fun. Catherine Zeta-Jones and Luis Guzman are always a good time. There's a trailer for this out, I think. Yeah, if you're interested and want to see more. All right, our last one. This is cool. Doctor Who veteran Maureen O'Brien, I believe that's one of the first companions from Doctor Who, reprises her role 57 years later in a Blu-ray commercial.
That's actually really, really cool. So I haven't watched the old Doctor Who, but I mean, this show's been around since the freaking 60s. And for an actor who played a character to come back and play another scene that follows up on her story from 1965 and like just left her off. She has like a family now and grandkids in the Roman times. It was just really, really cool. That show has been around forever, and that's just something special and fun. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching Take the Black. We are going to be doing a lot of stuff in the near future. We're going to have our regular Wednesday afternoon shows at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here on the Winter's Coming Facebook page and Winter's Coming YouTube page, where we'll talk all things fantasy, sci-fi, movies, TV, and House of the Dragon. But we're going to really dive into House of the Dragon each week when it's on Sunday nights on the Winter's Coming Facebook and YouTube pages, with episodes just dedicated to House of the Dragon and the newest episode right after it's over. So it starts at 8 at least where I am, CST. Yeah. And then we'll have an episode at 9. So like an hour later, we'll be on here talking through it all. Hope to see you there both times. We're also available in podcast form, wherever podcasts are available. So hope you tune into Take the Black, the origin of Superman's pedicurist.
Hey, guess what? By the time we see you guys next, House of the Dragon will have happened.
Bam.